The Custer Boys. Rarely will one find a more colorful pair of brothers than the Custer Boys, George Armstrong Custer and Thomas Ward Custer. The former gained fame, or perhaps infamy, when his 7th Cavalry Command was wiped out by Lakota, Arapaho, and Northern Cheyenne Indians led by the Lakota Sitting Bull on June 25, 1876, at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, along the Little Bighorn River in what was then Montana Territory. The battle at the Little Bighorn devastated the Custer family. George and Thomas Custer died at the Bighorn, along with little brother Boston, a brother-in-law, and a nephew. Prior to George and Thomas's arrival at Fort Leavenworth in 1866, they achieved renown for their Civil War exploits. The Civil War gave the Custers undreamed-of opportunities for martial glory. George Custer graduated from West Point in 1861 and immediately left to serve in the Civil War. George Custer played a key role during the fighting on July 3, 1863, where the men of the 1st Michigan Cavalry Regiment blunted a Confederate charge at the East Cavalry Field. George Custer served with the Army of the Potomac throughout the duration of the war and witnessed Confederate General Robert E. Lee's surrender to Federal General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. George Custer rose to the rank of Brevet Major General by the time of the Civil War's conclusion. Thomas Custer's promotion was not as spectacular, but he won not one, but 2 Congressional Medals of Honor during the Civil War. He won both for personally capturing 2 Confederate regimental flags on separate occasions. After service in the Western Theater, Custer gained promotion as an aide-de-camp to his brother George in the Army of the Potomac. At the conclusion of the Civil War, both headed west. George Custer's stay in Leavenworth proved controversial, as he was court-martialed here in 1867. Custer faced numerous charges, the most significant that he was absent without leave. After a trial that lasted for most of September and October 1867, Custer was found guilty of all charges and suspended for 1 year without pay, and lost rank. Considering the seriousness of the charges, the sentence seems remarkably light. The episode did not hinder Custer's career, although it did slow down the ambitious officer for a short time. Custer and his wife, Elizabeth Clift Bacon, stayed at Fort Leavenworth for 5 months after the verdict. In 1876, the Custer boys led the 7th Cavalry in search of Indians in the Montana Territory, and found them on the Little Bighorn River. In the ensuing battle, it quickly became clear that Custer vastly underestimated the Native American force he faced. The Indians destroyed the 5 companies with Custer, leaving no survivors. Close to half of the 7th Cavalry was killed. It was the greatest Indian victory over U.S. forces of the Indian Wars. Many of the bodies suffered mutilation, including George and Thomas Custer's corpses. George Custer's remains were sent to the West Point Cemetery, while Thomas Custer's body and the bodies of many other 7th Cavalry troopers were brought to the Fort Leavenworth National Cemetery, where they lay today. Thomas Custer is the only resident of the cemetery with 2 Congressional Medals of Honor.